Hey, a little more about these cards. Some of some of the other ways you can combine some of the images. A lot of times I'll just take two cards. I've got more than these two decks now, and now they're all mashed together. But you'll get these great combinations. On the left, this says Queen in French, and on the right is this damaged king from Rembrandt, a Rembrandt painting. And this is random combination. And just watching, there's an elegance and a modernism on the left, and a real damaged king on the right. Or this one, which is two images of a woman on a cliff. One from a comic, I have no idea where, and another from a famous Italian movie, L'Avventura. Um, And so these great combinations come up. All these people. This is from Quest of Fire, so it's just a bunch of Neanderthals in a cave. But down below is this finished drawing of a huge troll monster destroying all these people. And so these can become story prompts. They can just inform how you feel about the day. They can do all sorts of things. They can give you just something to think about or feel. This is an image by my co-teacher Justine, but then one by her mentor Jeffrey Jones. But it's also the image on the left. She was trying to go for a Jeffrey Jones look, and the funny thing is that again, this is random, but it's also about tracking and spirit animals and things like that. And it's just these great combinations come up. But then playful ones come up too. Sorry, this is blurry, but there's a stuffed cat on the left, and then there's this enormous totem spirit panther on the right. And you can wonder or imagine what the story is there. This felt like it was about Donald Trump. It's a Wally Wood drawing, this guy pointing, a lot of people leading, and then over there, this is a rare instance of two comic panels too. It's Mr. T's idea that before long he'll be the big boy, the dictator of America, and this definitely felt like a Trump story to me. That's Harold Gray. Little Orphan Annie on the right. Sometimes the combinations are just elegant, a little evocative. I'm not really sure what's going on here. It's really beautiful though. There's this like combination of things that are very passive at the moment. Also, if you flip it, it's a little bit different. It feels like those faces are now looking down at these deer, at these tails. I don't know. There's a lot going on here. You could bring them in or just let them drift away. This man is crying in LA. This woman is watching. Any number of things could be going on. This battle scene, it's actually a campfire at a military camp, but then there's this like octopus. Is it the octopus in charge of feeding this many people? Is the military camp itself an octopus? I don't know. So lots of great combinations. This chapel, and then is that inside the chapel? This Sluggo's incredibly damaged house. Maybe it is. Um, a beautiful. Sometimes the images are just so striking in the way that they're um, symmetrical, in the way they evoke or invoke this same thing. Here we see a person in the chakras and things like that, and on the bottom is just this man. This is from a Cassavetes movie, um, but it's not a prime specimen, right? He's beyond his time at this point in the movie. It's pretty sad if I remember right, and so it's like you've got this idea of a human on the top and this like physical embodiment of one on the bottom, both very symmetrical in the frame. Or this one, in both cases, the man is adoring the woman. The woman is holding the man's head in the first image, and the man is holding the woman's head in the second image. Again, all these came up randomly. This one, dark. The first image, this is Ishi. He was one of the last Native Americans to um, have been, he was part of a particular tribe. I think he was the last of a particular tribe. And here he is demonstrating how to flay a deer, I think. In the middle is Richard Dreyfuss from Close Encounters, and he's creating this enormous Devil's Tower in his living room again with his hands. And then the third one is this image of Yoko Ono's cut piece. She's inviting people to, with scissors, remove all her garments. So this man with his hands again is doing this dark, this trespass, right? And so I don't know, these three images sort of relate together in a lot of interesting ways. You could create a novel out of these three images. So at some point I realized that images alone wasn't enough, and I started scrawling things on post-it notes and putting them on regular cards and combining them. And sometimes they were simple things like a storm or use animals or things like that. And then I got deep into tvtropes.com, so I started culling from tvtropes.com. So a few of these are from their wacky wayside tribe. And here's this image of these two girls who aren't exactly twins, I don't think. But they're dressed identical, and they've got this weird looking dog when you look deep at it. And again, now we're starting to create stories again. Here's a landscape, but is there an eerily out of place object on this landscape? There's a wild cat at the bottom. There are two humans in that tree. I know that. You may not be able to see it. These things can kind of prompt your own imagination, or the imagination of, if you've created your own deck. This is remarkable. This enormous tree growing from the ruins of this temple, swapping bodies with an inhabitant of the other world. Usually we think of two human beings or animal sentient beings, but can you swap bodies with a tree? Might be a really interesting thing to think about. And maybe that other world is just our past. New life in another world. This boy who is really merely napping on a long day. He's waiting for a soccer game to start, but you put new life in another world next to it, and you begin to realize that there is this shift that can happen after a rest like that. There's that Yoko Ono image again. And Ribcage Ridge, I think in TV Tropes, refers to a sort of a part of a landscape that looks like a giant monster. Maybe it actually is the ribs of an enormous skeleton. I forget. Likewise, this is very similar to the Saharan shipwreck, when you come across an enormous shipwreck in a desert. And this combined with these sand images and this ocean side from Frank King is really interesting. And you can easily play with this and create a little poetic story. Eventually, I got sick of all those post-it notes and collecting decks of cards from the dollar store that I sent a bunch out to be printed. And this is the back. It says, what are the stories? And on the front, we see things like this. And so, again, this is a random combination. This is my friend Gabrielle Bell. Happens to be holding her dog. I think it's her dog. And the card that came up is Add Animals. That almost seemed too obvious, so I pulled another one, Go It Alone. And this now, maybe, this is her saying goodbye to the dog, maybe. Or dragging the dog along because going it alone means having your dog but being away from people or something. You can swap these out. You can bring in new images. Go It Alone. But now this image here is it's a recreation of like a Babylonian city, if I remember correctly. But Go It Alone, this is one of the first civilizations, first cityscapes. Maybe already people are tiring of each other and someone wants to go it alone. I don't know what this might mean. This is a boy trying to find work, trying to find place to do his homework. I think it's a boy, it might be a girl. Bushes in arrangement, is that something this child is drawing on the table? Somebody dreaming about? I don't know. That's a strange one. I seem to have a lot of cards of people just looking out and looking at things, but it's wild that and the ocean came up. Clearly he's not looking at the ocean, or maybe he is, but he's probably dreaming about the ocean. Who knows? You can go anywhere with these things. Pull out a different card and you get Martha Graham dancing about the ocean. She is oceanic in all these swells and waves. You could pull out another card, Hooves. Suddenly she's dancing an animalistic dance, maybe. Dionysian. Another little orphan Annie. Oh, out-of-state tags, and those guys, they don't belong around here. I don't like their looks. Playing dolls is the game, or is the prompt, so Are we looking at, you know, is Annie really saying this? Or do we just create a story where somebody says a little child is playing dolls and does this? Or is this a kind of game that adults play and they're trying to map out their opponent's plans, with stand-ins and maps and dolls and things? So you can also take the images out and just pull a few of those cards: writing a letter, playing dolls, raised as a host, which is clearly a trope, but pretty interesting. And then, but think of this: if you're raised as a host, what does your play look like? What does your communication look like? It's pretty wild. It's an Octavia Butler story about being raised as a host. So that's just some ways to think about how to combine ideas, images, story snippets, pictures that have moved you. And again, it's about letting those images flow through you and always sort of like come back at you like waves of the ocean, and sort of remind you that you are part of this large culture, and you have loads and loads of responses, and all of these things can mean something. They meant something one day when you picked it out. They meant something one day when you wrote it down. They can mean something when you respond to it. And you can create a larger meaning with your larger efforts too.